Welcome to this worship service of the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock in Manhasset, New York. I'm Meg Cohen, a member of the congregation and a worship associate. Ours is a congregation of people with different theological beliefs, but shared values. Foremost among them, respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Within this framework, our shared values, we covenant to respect each other's beliefs and spiritual practices. Each Sunday, we take a little time to consider a theme or topic that connects us to our values so that we can live into them more fully and with deeper spiritual insight. In today's service, we consider together the idea of prayer from different perspectives. Our special guest is Joshua Berg, a UU seminarian at Meadville Lombard Theological School. Now, let's center ourselves as we enter into a time of worship. People with different beliefs who worship together as one faith.
I believe in naps, a glass of cold water, long showers, mango slices, beating juice on your tongue, daydreaming while everyone else meditates. We were made for grace, not for perfectionism or productivity, but for wet clothes on fevered temples, for layered cakes, for the person who holds the door or pays for our groceries. Grace is the only way we all get out alive. Each Sunday we light the chalice of our religious heritage. We do this for our ancestors who taught us through their various religious traditions and by their actions for justice and hope. We do this for our children who are learning the traditions we teach and who learn more from our actions than our words. We do this for ourselves to remind us of who we are and who we seek to become. This flame symbolizes the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Rise in
Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need. This we do affirm and covenant with each other.
Different ways to pray. There was the method of kneeling, a fine method if you lived in a country where stones were smooth. The women dreamed wistfully of bleached courtyards, hidden corners where knee fit rock. Their prayers were weathered rib bones, small calcium words uttered in sequence, as if this shedding of syllables could somehow fuse them to the sky. There were the men who had been shepherds so long they walked like sheep. Under the olive trees they raised their arms. Hear us, we have pain on earth. We have so much pain there is no place to store it. But the olives bobbed peacefully in fragrant buckets of vinegar and thyme. At night, the men ate heartily flat bread and white cheese, and were happy in spite of the pain, because there was also happiness. Some prized the pilgrimage, wrapping themselves in new white linen to ride buses across miles of vacant sand. When they arrived at Mecca, they would circle the holy places on foot many times. They would bend to kiss the earth and return, their lean faces housing mystery. While for certain cousins and grandmothers, the pilgrimage occurred daily, lugging water from the spring or balancing the baskets of grapes. These were the ones present at births, humming quietly to perspiring mothers. The ones stitching intricate needlework into children's dresses, forgetting how easily children soil clothes. There were those who didn't care about praying, the young ones, the ones who had been to America. They told the old ones, "You're wasting your time." Time? The old ones prayed for the young ones. They prayed for Allah to mend their brains, for the twig, the round moon, to speak suddenly in a commanding tone. And occasionally, there would be one who did none of this. The old man Fauzi, for example, Fauzi the fool, who beat everyone at dominoes, insisted he spoke with God as he spoke with goats, and was famous for his laugh.
In our Unitarian Universalist congregation, we covenant to plant seeds of care and compassion. We hope to grow strong trees of justice. One of the ways we live into these actions each week is by taking up a collection for organizations which seek to bring help, hope, and healing to individuals, families, and communities in desperate need of greater justice, equity, and compassion. This collection today is for the annual school supplies drive for the children of the village of Hempstead whose parents are incarcerated. The organizer of this drive is ABBA, Able Body of Believers Alliance, an organization founded and directed by Reverend Reginald Benjamin. While ABBA's major focus is job training for returning citizens and others who struggle to find employment, Reverend Benjamin believes in responding to the needs of the entire community. One vehicle for this response is the school supplies drive every summer. Your donations will help purchase needed educational items for these children. thereby supporting their efforts to grow in mind, body, and spirit. There are 3 ways you can donate: through our website at UUCSR.org, over text at 516-210-2528, or through PayPal. Please give as generously as you are able in this time of even greater need. Thank you for your compassion and your generosity. Together, may we continue to build a more just and joyful world.
As a humanist, I long claim that I just don't pray. Some humanists do, but not me. However, since chaplaincy training and subsequently formation as a UU minister and seminary, I've had to confront prayer as well as those to whom prayer is incredibly meaningful. So I decided to preach today on prayer to challenge myself, and also to ask that you challenge yourselves to consider the meaning of prayer. What I love about UUism is that our theologies and philosophies are always in progress. As our 4th principle states, we practice a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unitarian Universalists assert no creed, but instead are unified by their shared search for spiritual growth. So, let me ask you some questions, as I ask myself the same questions, so that we can jointly grow spiritually. What is prayer? Does prayer work, and if so, how? And is prayer necessary? In addressing these questions, the homily today will flow relatively freely between a compilation of thought prompts and pieces of a story. So the first question is, what is prayer? I'm going to ask, is it an expression of gratitude, of thanks? Does prayer as an expression of gratitude work? And if so, how? And is expressing gratitude even necessary? Here's something to think about from Psychology Today. The article was called Why Gratitude Matters. And I quote, "It is possible to feel grateful toward loved ones, colleagues, animals, Mother Nature, and life in general. So it's not just expressed to the divine. The emotion, gratitude, generates a climate of positivity that both reaches inward and extends outward." Continuing, they write, psychologists find that over time feeling grateful boosts happiness and fosters both physical and psychological health, even among those already struggling with mental health problems, myself included. Studies show that practicing gratitude curbs the use of words expressing negative emotions, and shifts inner attention away from such negative emotions as resentment and envy, and it minimizes the possibility of ruminating over these emotions, which is a hallmark of depression. Further, they write that the beneficial effects, they snowball over time. Brain scans of people assigned a task that stimulates expressions of gratitude show lasting changes in the prefrontal cortex that heighten sensitivity to future experiences of gratitude. The emotion literally pays itself forward. That's the first thing to think about. And now here's part one of my story called A Secular Humanist Chaplain Learns to Pray. I recently visited an elderly Christian patient who was unconscious and close to death. I wrote this when I was in chaplain training. So who am I as a chaplain? I can't know completely in this liminal stage of clinical pastoral education, but I have come to certain tentative conclusions. I'll focus herein on one I arrived at by examining a conundrum I'm still working to reconcile. What does prayer mean to me? Prayer is defined as an earnest request or a wish, strictly, and it's usually a petition to a higher power. Well, I can nix the latter part, given I'm an atheist. However, I would like to elaborate upon the former, the request. Prayer, I imagine, should be a wish to help those praying and those hearing the prayer by lifting their spirits. So for now, I'll define prayer as words or exercises that move the heart to heal itself. Now, prior to coming to this secular epiphany, I witnessed people awakening to higher spirits while praying, along with familiar religious text, and wanting to elicit that same response to bring comfort to patients by presenting the warmth of the familiar, in other words, the familiarity of the religious text, I often stumbled. I experimented with ways to pray authentically, if such a thing is possible for me at the time, and I tried spontaneous words of comfort, but my unseasoned tongue produced mostly bland and undercooked offerings, and I prepped and I kneaded and I baked visualizations, which deflated as often as they rose. I knew I would find the right recipes with time, research, and practice. However, in the interim, working to meet the patient where they are, not where I am, I decided my only recourse was to do what I convinced myself was gifting with religious prayers meaningful to them. Now I'm going to ask, what is prayer? Is it an appeal to a higher power? Does prayer as an appeal to a higher power work? And if so, how? Is a prayer as an appeal to a higher power even necessary? Well, my personal opinion is that prayer need not be petitionary to a higher power. This is the toughest manifestation of prayer for me to reconcile. As I went through Hebrew school growing up, performed my bar mitzvah, I purposefully did not focus on the meaning of the Hebrew because I never believed in a creator. And it was mostly an appeal to him, the creator, the God of Judaism, referred to as a male, who I didn't believe in. One of my brothers is now an Orthodox Jew, and he talks to me about how prayer is proven to work, and how he's very careful to teach his children the right way to pray. And it confounds me how there can be a God that answers prayers, but especially one that only answers them if you do it right. My brother's an intelligent person. He's a doctor, in fact, and I respect that for him and many others, there is deeper meaning, even if prayer as appeal to God still quite bewilders me. There are many definitions of prayer besides the theistic one. New Thought pioneer Phineas Parkhurst Quimby bequeathed the doctrine that true prayer is the conscious realization of our intrinsic well-being. And in his book, Prayer, A History, Philip Zaleski talks about how, quote, the united chorus of scientists, physicians, and public agree that prayer results in fewer heart attacks, lower blood pressure, less anxiety, stronger immune systems, and longer, happier, healthier lives. So that's great. And there is, though, I believe, a way to approach these medicinal benefits of prayer that avoids the theological tangles. And it simply is this: it leaves God out of the question, out of the equation. According to this view, even if prayer happens to come from religious believers, its efficacy depends not on a transcendent being, but rather on some power inherent in the prayer itself. Prayer is not an exchange between creature and creator, and I'm quoting Zelensky again. It's not an exchange between creature and creator, but it's an impersonal force that possesses healing qualities. The prayer itself, regardless of who it's to, is healing. So if not God, when we pray as a request or as an appeal, who or what are we asking? Are we praying to? Well, I don't have an answer to that. It's just something else to think about. And now part 2 of my story, a secular humanist chaplain learns to pray. Back to the hospital room. So being a non-believer, I was not armed with quotes or songs from any theological canon that resonated with me. So I entered the patient's room with this gift-wrapped Christian prayer. I spoke to the family, offering sympathy and compassion, and then I started in on Psalm 23, never having read it purposely prior. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. At one point, the son's phone rang during this, and he answered it, and I kept barreling through the prayer, fairly confident they were not really hearing anything I was saying anyways, just wanting to reach the end and move on. I spoke these words at the time with as much emotional connection as Alexa or Siri would speak them. And the people in the hospital knew it. I knew it. It was a good thing I don't believe there is a God, because certainly she would have known it too. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Don't get me wrong. This is a beautiful song. It's not to mention a very meaningful song, which I hold in very high regard for the benefit it gives to so many. I'm not disparaging the psalm. However, at the time, I was able to say the words, but I could not embody the words. I could not make the experience holy in a way a believer can. Another thought prompt. Let's stop the story for now. So what is prayer? Is it an expression of hope, a wish, a positive reset of the spirit? Does prayer as a wish work? And if so, how? Is prayer as an expression of hope even necessary? So here's another something to think about. Let me ask those questions again, the same ones I just asked, without the word prayer. Does a wish work? And if so, how? Is an expression of hope necessary? Buddhists pray what is called a metta prayer. It's designed to intentionalize good wishes and a sense of benevolence for oneself and for others. And the idea is to wish the good things we all naturally desire, first for oneself, then for a close loved one, and then radiating out by degrees until one has encompassed all sentient beings everywhere. And in my opinion, this matters not so much for the one who is the object of the wish, as much as the one who's doing the hoping. I believe it was Kierkegaard who said the function of prayer is to change the nature of the one who prays. Hope is related to positive outcomes. In one study, again from Psychology Today, researchers looked at the impact of hope on college academic achievement over the course of 6 years, and hope was related to higher GPA 6 years later, even after taking into account the original GPA and ACT entrance examination scores of the participants. High hope students, relative to low hope students, were also more likely to have graduated and were less likely to be dismissed from school due to bad grades. In another recent study, researchers looked at the role of hope among athletes. Athletes had higher levels of hope than non-athletes. Among female cross-country athletes in particular, the state of having hope predicted athletic outcomes beyond training, self-esteem, confidence, and mood. Once again, just something to think about. Back to the story, back to the hospital. Part 3, a secular humanist chaplain learns to pray. I also recently spoke with my colleague at the hospital. He's a Buddhist monk, and he's the lead palliative care chaplain at the hospital, the Venerable Kevin Hickey. I spoke to him about prayer, and his advice was to investigate what the patient desired to pray for, and then create a bespoke prayer within the context of my belief system that also did not disparage theirs. I didn't comprehend how much more involved this was than just making a shopping list of needs, but how it required a loving connection where another human being invites you to walk with them spiritually. So back in the hospital room, the son apologized for his phone call interrupting my prayer. And I felt least like a spiritual caregiver in that moment, realizing warmth is generated as much by the words and notes as by the sincerity underneath it. I was essentially deceiving this person whose father was dying, and he felt the need to apologize for interrupting me. He turned to his father and he said, "Dad, I love you." And then his father was gone. And the son wailed, and I spoke up. And I said, "The final words your father heard as he left this earth were his son saying he loved him. What a gift," I told him. And it was honest, it was spontaneous, it was connected. The words that I said, these were words to help, quote, the heart to heal itself. And he knew it, and I knew it, and if there was a God, she would certainly have known it as well. I just spoke one simple line, hardly to be compared to the poetry of a psalm, but it was in the moment my prayer. The final words your father heard as he left this earth were his son saying he loved him. It was my wish to help, and it was a heartfelt one at that. And the moment finally made some sense, if any sense can be made of being witness to death. The son gave the moment meaning by saying I love you, an intersubjective meaning, and I just highlighted that. And after that experience, I understood a bit more about prayer and about myself in the theater of spiritual care. As a chaplain, rather than stage a prayer in order to pray with or for someone, I simply have to have the courage just to be present, fully present, and actively listen with empathetic ears and a hearing heart. So I've now explored prayer as giving thanks, as an appeal to a higher power, and as a hope or wish. These are many forms that prayer can take. It can just be music, it can be art. The reason my mom attends high holy day services in the temple is to hear the beautiful chanting of the Yom Kippur Kol Nidra service, regardless of the meaning of the words. It connects her to her heritage. Prayer can be the exclamatory appeals to Jesus that my sister-in-law shouts every time she gets upset or excited, "Please, Lord Jesus, please." It can be the escape offered by the hypnotic rhythm and sound of the Sufi dakhir. I apologize for mispronouncing that. Or the dancing of the whirling dervish. It can be the quiet davening and rocking of the Orthodox Jew. It can be the harmonious tones of a gospel spiritual. There's sacrificial prayer, there's de profundis prayer, healing prayer, litanies, aspirations, lamentations, intercessory requests, glossolalia, speaking in tongues of the Pentecostal, or simply sitting in quiet as the Quakers do. With all this in mind, let me try and expand on the definition I set forth earlier, that prayer is the words that move the heart to heal itself. I now realize prayer is anything. Words, actions, art, even silence, that incites the heart or the spirit to reset, and the mind to new insights through healing or rejoicing. In other words, prayer connects and comforts. If you want a shorter definition, theistic or not, prayer seems to be a heart defibrillator of sorts. Charge, clear, pray. I know my audience at a UU church, however, and the next question will be, why call it prayer at all? Why must we use that term, the sacred language, the religious language? Why not just say it's a hope, it's a wish, a comforting action? I don't know the answer, and I don't know that we need to know the answer or to use the word. There may be no good reason for the layperson to use that word, but as a minister and a chaplain living in a world filled with people praying, I know I have to be comfortable with prayer.
When I'm find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Yet there will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. There is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be. Oh, there will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be.
Spirit of light and love, spirit of resistance, spirit of generosity, that which serves as our conscience in this work, that we do to dismantle white supremacy, to empower the marginalized, to insist that Black lives matter. We have been angered, we have been saddened, we have been pushed to the brink once more. We are inspired and resolved to do better this time, to not simply get to the other side of this moment, but to get there morally healthier, to get to a safer place for Black bodies. Spirit, help us to understand that we each have a role in justice work, for our liberation are tied to one another's. Give us the clarity of mind to know what our individual part is in this struggle, that there are many ways to protest injustice. Help us to find our way and commit to it. Spirits, we ask for guidance. Send us strength and endurance. Help us to give our all to this and hold nothing back, for precious lives depend on it. We will be imperfect. Rest assured that we will mess up over and over again, and we must do it anyway. May we summon the courage to tear down this system of injustice and get busy creating a world community with justice for all. May it be so. Amen. Now we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into all the world.